The rise of fintech in Nigeria can be traced back to the first quarter of 2021, where the country's fintech industry generated about $293.2 million in revenue, with over 70% of the said revenue realized from foreign direct investments. The revenue is now projected to reach $543 million in 2022, a huge growth from $178.3 million generated in 2018 and $153.1 million generated in 2017. There are currently 5 fintech unicorns in Africa, and 3 of which are Interswitch, Flutterwave, and Paystack are Nigerian companies. This clearly indicates that the fintech industry in Nigeria has experienced remarkable growth in the last 3 years. Recently, Flutterwave, a Nigerian fintech startup which facilitates cross-border payment for companies, achieved a $3 billion valuation to become Africa's richest startup. Can a Nigerian Islamic Fintech achieve the status of a unicorn in the next 10 years? Good morning and welcome to the Islamic Finance Weekly, where we discuss and capture the activities in the non-interest finance market. In this episode of the program, I'll be discussing opportunities for scaling Islamic Fintech in Nigeria. Joining me virtually for this conversation is Mr. Akintunde Adegbenga. He is a lecturer in the Mass Communication Department at Fountain University, Osogbo. Thank you for coming on the program.
Good morning, Bukola. It's a great pleasure being on this program, and I really love the good job that you're putting up.
It is my pleasure. Thank you very much for coming on the Islamic Finance Weekly. Digitalization picked up pace during the pandemic, and we've seen new products, services, new customers' behaviors, and innovative business ideas have emerged worldwide. How do you see Islamic fintech operations in Nigeria and Africa at large?
Thank you so much. And one of the greatest blessings that the pandemic has brought to the world globally, the rise and these are financial technologies which are used for payment solutions, as well as some of these blockchain transactions. As you will see that the companies which are small startups now are becoming and growing into bigger brands, and it's creating quite a lot of opportunity. Like the Islamic Fintech in Nigeria, I see a virgin land, an opportunity for some of these companies, especially the likes of the Taj Bank, which are just coming up, as well as the other one that actually came up, which is
Lotus Bank.
Lotus Bank, Lotus Capital. Then we have Lotus Bank, as well as the mother of all, which has been in business and actually paved way for this month. What I see is, if the population of the Islamic adherents, or those who are even patronizing, let's say for instance, the adoption and what they drive the Sukuk, which was accepted, if the Islamic fintech companies in Nigeria can actually leverage on it and come up with very good products that can actually stand shoulder to shoulder, like taking after the likes of Flutterwaves, the Paystack, and all other brands which are doing well. I see a very robust and a very good profitable business in the nearest future. No doubt that the fintech companies can actually get this market, because we have a very large market waiting to be captured. And I think this is what the fintech companies have actually done in a couple of years with the establishments.
You know, when we talk about fintech, we are talking about finance and technology. But when it comes to Islamic fintech, Sharia aspect must be considered.
Yes, I agree with you, because when we're talking about ethical, because we are talking about non-interest, a mutually based profitable venture whereby it's a win-win for every one of us. And we are the Sharia, what Sharia actually wanted to create, which is the basis for why we're having this Islamic finance, is that there should be an equitable distribution of wealth. There should be a very robust wealth creation, and that is, yes, that's the main purpose of the finance. And when you now look at this fintech, they are making the accessibility to some of these finances to solve the myriad of financial transactions across board. So, and that's why it is in compliance with these Sharia principles that makes the Islamic principle have what we call, it's removing a lot of barriers into debt burdening. So when you look at some of the composition of the Islamic finance, is making the ordinary people or those who are business-minded to move far and very wide when it comes to access to finance. And fintech surely has actually come to the rescue with making these products available and at when due.
Thank you very much, Mr. Adegbenga, for sharing your perspective with us on what the Nigerian Islamic Fintech needs to do to achieve scale or growth in Nigeria. Thank you very much. According to the 2021 Global Islamic Fintech Survey report, the African region has been projected to experience a 1% growth in Islamic Fintech through the next 12 months. What are the obstacles facing the growth of Islamic Fintech in Nigeria?
I think access is one of the greatest obstacles. If Nigerian or African Islamic finance could access some of this fund, I think it's going to be a very huge fund that we made available for small startups and all others who actually want to. Then, secondly, it has to do with capacity building. A lot of less professionals are in this area, and it looks like these the lack of human capacity development or human capacity building is one of the greatest challenges that we have, because only very few people are the sizable number of experts in this area are limited, and this is an hindrance. Then thirdly, it has to do with the facility, the internet facility, or some of what should have been our strength, because a lot of young people who wants to go into these emerging markets or these emerging areas would be limited when there is no access to some of these very wonderful facility. We're just talking about, the world is talking about 5G, then Nigeria is just transiting from 4G to, and with 5G, you would agree with me that some of these products can actually be developed from the experts that would be using them or be developing some of these products for use in this. So I think these are some of the limiting factors. Then regulation, for instance, the regulatory bodies or the regulatory framework for some of these things to strive in our country is still at a very slow pace, or we can say that it needs a lot of scale up. We need to scale it up in the coming months or in the coming years, so that for us to compete favorably with our other counterparts in other parts of the world. So these are some of my views in what are the limiting factors into the striving of the Islamic fintech in Nigeria.
Yeah, definitely, Mr. Adegbenga. I agree with you. Lack of access to finance, capacity building, and also regulatory environment and internationally Sharia advisory services are part of obstacles facing Islamic fintech in Nigeria. Thank you very much for highlighting those points.
You're welcome.
So recently, the fintech startup Flutterwave achieved a $3 billion valuation to become Africa's richest startup. How should Islamic fintechs in Nigeria scale up to attract significant investment and achieve growth?
Well, you will see that Flutterways did just not wake up one day and just achieve that feat. There was a lot of collaborations. There were a lot of networking, and there was a robust synergy between some of these small startups to build these bigger brands. And you will see, just like before the consolidation of the banking sector in Nigeria, the smaller companies were actually acquired, and it makes them solid. So we still have some of these hurdles to cross when we would be talking about competing with the international brands or some of these bigger startups. As far as I'm concerned, for the Islamic finance fintech, for them to actually be able to compete favorably, because when you look at the market size still looks small, but there is a lot of a very, very big market to be captured. And when you are not actually, when you have smaller things not coming up to actually team up and make up what should be, what should seem a bigger brand, it will take us years for us to get to where we are. So I will advocate that, yes, there are, if we look at some of the international best practices, it doesn't take us like a rocket science for us to come up with some of these things. My advice in that order should be that let there be a robust networking, let some of these small startups, let them team up, and I think in no distant future, we'll be able to meet up with what Flutterwave or the Paystack are doing presently.
Collaboration is key. Now let's look at the Islamic banking in Nigeria. So as an expertise, do you think Nigeria Islamic banking are ready for the fintech era in terms of collaboration to close the gap in financial inclusion?
There is no better time than now, because ordinarily for me, if I were to do an objective assessment, I still think, well, it looks like they are yet to get there. But I don't see a possibility that we can do better, because the only room available in any part of the world is the room for improvement. So for me, the Islamic finance sector in Nigeria still look under
finance sector in Nigeria
or non-interest finance. I mean, when you look at the numbers of companies in it, they still look very small compared to the conventional ones. And we are competing and we have products. We have products that can actually, and this gives us an impression that the customers out there are looking for top-notch products that can actually solve their financial needs. And that is why even conventional banks are having windows, Islamic windows, for some of these. So it's a very big opportunity for us to actually to key into. But unfortunately, it looks like the players, let's say the critical players or the critical stakeholders in that sector needs to do more. They need to do more. They need to scale up.
And most of the non-interest banks in Nigeria still rely on traditional banking.
In fact, they still run products that are similar to the convention. You hardly be able to distinguish between. There's a very thin line between what they are doing and what the conventional bank are doing, and it's a confusing atmosphere for so many people who actually wanted an ethical.
What do they need to do differently? What do they need to do?
Strategy. They need to adopt strategy, because some of the strategies that they are, because when you have a strategy that doesn't look new, the customer is looking for what you are going to do differently. And it has to do with what kind of strategy do you want. Like when you look at some products now, some products, when they look at the affordability of their products, they are looking at downsizing. The retail banking that many banks were looking at, some actually had been looking at various ways of making their retail banking looks with different types of strategy, and they are coming up with how to market penetration. So in order to have and make this financial inclusion, the financial inclusion is something that should be able to be an all-encompassing thing. Everybody should be able to have access into it, and it's all about the strategy that we adopt.
Particularly the unbanked population in the country.
Of course, when you look at the unbanked sector, look, with the recent introduction of some of these POS, the ATM, is when you look at the proliferation of the point of sales, the POS, a lot of people are in there, and you can see that a lot of unbanked population are getting access. The launch of the e-wallet, the e-Naira wallet is, so these are strategies that I believe that, yes, some of these Islamic finance or Islamic banks should be able to look critically at what are the strategy and how to penetrate the bank and achieve a more viable, and we'll be able to compete favorably with our counterpart like countries of Malaysia and Saudi Arabia. We should be able to look at, compare notes and see what they are doing differently, so that our customer in this area will have very satisfactory products and services to go with.
Definitely, Mr. Adegbenga, the non-interest bank in Nigeria needs to explore opportunities on tap in order to close the financial inclusion gap in the country.
Yes. Yeah.
Now, as we wrap up the conversation, let's look at the significance of fintech, which has been driving force in the African economy, with $180 billion projected to contribute to the continent's GDP by 2025. So, how should the fintech regulators indigenize Islamic fintech in Nigeria?
This aspect is is something that is very dear to my heart, because it's huge. It's huge. It's an opportunity for anybody who is in the financial sector, or who is in the area of business and finance, would be able to look critically to say that, yes, a huge number of money coming into the gross domestic product and in this sector, and yet the regulatory framework is still very, very low. Now,
you mean the regulatory framework to Islamic fintech is very low, not to the conventional fintech?
It's very low. It's very low. Because when you look at what the conventional banks are doing, there are relevant so many laws, so many regulatory bodies being set up and looking at critically in some of these things. We need laws, because laws are what governs so many things, and that is what I call the area of policy formulation. We need to do more. Yes, there are policies on ground, no doubt about that, but we need to put in more, and we need to now look at the peculiarity of our community, our environment, our immediate environment. What works for them in Malaysia might be very difficult to work for Nigerians, because Nigeria is a peculiar terrain. Yeah. And we need to up our game in this particular aspect. So in the area of indigenizing some of these things, we need to look at the local relevance of some of these policies and laws that needs to be put in place. Then two, the indigenization effort should go at making some of these things, creating enough awareness. The awareness of this Islamic finance, to me, from my own assessment, from a little study that I did, quite out of the population of over 300 that I have actually surveyed, only about 50 of them were aware of anything Islamic finance fintech, which is quite a very low percentage as to what can actually be adjudged. So in order for them, or in order for us to actually move and have a tremendous mileage in this area, we need to indigenize by creating enough awareness. And when I said awareness, there is what we call the urbanization. Most of the messages, most of the awareness, most of the information about fintech, Islamic fintech, in Nigeria has been from the urban, is for the urban audience, and the rural and the local community are actually not well captured. And that's why we're not talking about the use of coming up with programs like this in indigenous languages. Some of the campaigns, some of the awareness, some of the adverts that will be done in order to get the message to the local audience. By doing this, it will go a long way. For instance, the Ikoko Nuweroyin for now, or has been what we call a news headline review, but it is now a product that cuts across some of the local channels, and it is passing the message right to the grassroots and the local community. So also, we should actually adopt or come up with other strategies that will make these awareness or this popularization of Islamic finance more viable, and we'll be able to have as many people as possible in the net.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Adegbenga. Indeed, the future of Islamic finance is fintech. Thank you very much for sharing your perspective with us on Islamic fintech in Nigeria. We appreciate your intervention.
Thank you so much. I'll be glad to be on the show whenever I have the opportunity again.
Of course, of course. Do have a lovely day.
Yeah. Thank you so much, and you too.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. The fintech industry, as earlier stated, has evolved as a game changer in the Nigerian economy, accounting for the highest number of foreign investments in the country. It also provides immense opportunities for youth employment and entrepreneurship. With an enabling policy and regulatory environment, Islamic fintechs will be encouraged to take the challenge of providing innovative products and services that can lead to a significant leap in financial inclusion. It will be interesting to see an Islamic fintech emerge as unicorn few years from now. This is achievable. And that will be all for today. Many thanks to all our viewers for watching and following the Islamic Finance Weekly. See you next week Friday for another episode. Bye for now.